Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information you bad folks would rather not have. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll provide another installation into our Anti-Federalist Papers series, going on number 56. So if you haven't gone back and watched 1 through 55, I would highly encourage you to do so, because understanding the Federalist Papers in addition to the Anti-Federalist Papers, you can reverse those if you'd like, will provide you a very advantageous understanding of the U.S. Constitution, and understanding the U.S. Constitution will be absolutely necessary if you intend to combat any sort of lawfare waged against you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the Anti-Federalist Papers. The version I'm using is provided by the constitutionalistsociety.com, but there are multiple institutions from which you can get a paper and digital copy of the Anti-Federalist Papers. Go ahead and get both formats. And if you haven't done so already, get a copy of the Federalist Papers so you can join us in comparing and contrasting the arguments for and against ratifying the U.S. Constitution. Excellent. So number 56 is titled, Will the House of Representatives be Genuinely Representative? Part 2, continuing on last lecture. Another reason why it's so important to go through and watch all of these and not just skip and jump around. So we're continuing from The Federal Farmer, an alias that was used by one of the Anti-Federalists. He says, why in England have the revolutions always ended in stipulations in favor of general liberty, equal laws, and the common rights of the people, and in most other countries in favor only of a few influential men? The reasons, in my mind, are obvious. In England, the people have been substantially represented in many respects. In the other countries, it has not been so. Perhaps a small degree of attention to a few simple facts will illustrate this. In England, from the oppressions of the Norman kings to the Revolution in 1688, during which period of 200 or 300 years, the English liberties were ascertained and established. The aristocratic part of that nation was substantially represented by a very large number of nobles possessing similar interests and feelings with those they represented. The body of the people, about 4 or 5 millions, then mostly a frugal landed people, were represented by about 500 representatives, taken not from the order of men which formed the aristocracy, but from the body of the people, and possessed of the same interests and feelings. De Lulme, speaking of the British representation, expressly founds all his reasons on this union, this similitude of interests, feelings, views, and circumstances. He observes the English have preserved their liberties because they and their leaders or representatives have been strictly united in interests and in contending for general liberty. Here we see a genuine balance founded in the actual state of things. The whole community, probably not more than 2/5 more numerous than we now are, were represented by 700 or 800 men. The barons stipulated with the common people, and the king with the whole. Had the legal distinction between lords and commons been broken down, and the people of that island been called upon to elect 45 senators and 120 representatives, about the proportion we propose to establish, their whole legislature evidently would have been of the natural aristocracy, and the body of the people would not have had scarcely a single sincere advocate. Their interests would have been neglected, general and equal liberty forgot, and the balance lost. Contest and conciliations, as in most other countries, would have been merely among a few, and as it might have been necessary to serve their purposes, the people at large would have been flattered or threatened, and probably not a single stipulation made in their favor. In Rome, the people were miserable, though they bade 3 orders, the consuls, senators, and tribunes, and approved the laws, and all for want of a genuine representation. The people were too numerous to assemble and do anything properly themselves. The voice of a few, the dupes of artifice, was called the voice of the people. It is difficult for the people to defend themselves against the arts and intrigues of the great, but by selecting a suitable number of men fixed their interests to represent them and to oppose ministers and senators, much depends on the number of the men selected and the manner of doing it. To be convinced of this, we need only attend to the reason of the case, the conduct of the British Commons, and of the Roman tribunes. Equal liberty prevails in England because there was a representation of the people, in fact and reality, to establish it. Equal liberty never prevailed in Rome because there was but the shadow of a representation. There were consuls in Rome annually elected to execute the laws. Several hundred senators represented the great families. The body of the people annually chose tribunes from among themselves to defend them and to secure their rights. I think the number of tribunes annually chosen never exceeded 10. This representation, perhaps, was not proportionally so numerous as the representation proposed in the new plan, but the difference will not appear to be so great, when it shall be recollected that these tribunes were chosen annually, that the great patrician families were not admitted to these offices of tribunes, and that the people of Italy who elected the tribunes were a long while, if not always, a small people compared with the people of the United States. What was the consequence of this trifling representation? The people of Rome always elected for their tribunes men conspicuous for their riches, military commands, professional popularity, etc., great commoners, between whom and the noble families there was only the shadowy difference of legal distinction. Among all the tribunes the people chose for several centuries, they had scarcely 5 real friends to their interests. These tribunes lived, felt, and saw, not like the people, but like the great patrician families, like senators and great officers of state, to get into which it was evident by their conduct was their sole object. These tribunes often talked about the rights and prerogatives of the people, and that was all, for they never even attempted to establish equal liberty. So far from establishing the rights of the people, they suffered the Senate, to the exclusion of the people, to engross the powers of taxation, those excellent and almost only real weapons of defense even the people of England possess. The tribunes obtained that the people should be eligible to some of the great offices of state and marry, if they pleased, into the noble families. These were advantages in their nature confined to a few elevated commoners and of trifling importance to the people at large. Nearly the same observations may be as to the euphoria of Sparta. We may amuse ourselves with names. The fact is, men will be governed by the motives and temptations that surround their situation. Political evils to be guarded against are in the human character, and not in the name of patrician or plebeian. Had the people of Italy, in the early period of the Republic, selected yearly or biennially 400 or 500 of their best informed men, emphatically from among themselves, these representatives would have formed an honest, respectable assembly, capable of combining in them the views and exertions of the people, and their respectability would have procured them honest and able leaders, and we should have seen equal liberty established. True liberty stands in need of a fostering band. From the days of Adam, she has found but one temple to dwell in securely. She has laid the foundation of one, perhaps her last in America. Whether this is to be completed and have duration is yet a question. Equal liberty never yet found many advocates among the great. It is a disagreeable truth that power perverts men's views in a greater degree than public employments inform their understandings. They become hardened in certain maxims and more lost to fellow feelings. Men may always be too cautious to commit alarming and glaring iniquities, but they, as well as systems, are liable to be corrupted by slow degrees. Junius well observes, we are not only to guard against what men will do, but even against what they may do. Nominal. Maxim. Men in high public offices are in stations where they gradually lose sight of the people, and do not often think of attending to them, except when necessary to answer private purposes. The body of the people must have this true representative security placed somewhere in the nation, and in the United States, or in any extended empire, I am fully persuaded it can be placed nowhere but in the forms of a federal republic, where we can divide and place it in several state or district legislatures, giving the people in these the means of opposing heavy internal taxes and oppressive measures in the proper stages. A great empire contains the amities and animosities of a world within itself. We are not like the people of England, one people compactly settled on a small island with a great city filled with frugal merchants serving as a common center of liberty and union. We are dispersed, and it is impracticable for any but the few to assemble in one place. The few must be watched, checked, and often resisted. Tyranny has ever shown a predilection to be in close amity with them or the one man. Drive it from kings, and it flies to senators, to, let's see if I can remember how to pronounce this, disinferi, to dictators, to tribunes, to popular leaders, to military chiefs, and etc. De Lome well observes that in societies, laws which were to be equal to all are soon warped to the private interests of the administrators and made to defend the usurpations of a few. The English, who had tasted the sweets of equal laws, were aware of this, and though they restored their king, they carefully delegated to Parliament the advocates of freedom. I have often lately heard it observed that it will do very well for a people to make a constitution and ordain that it stand periods. They will choose, in a certain manner, a first magistrate, a given number of senators and representatives, and let them have all power to do as they please. This doctrine, however it may do for a small republic, as Connecticut, for instance, where the people may choose so many senators and representatives as to assemble in the legislature, representing in an eminent degree the interests, the views, feelings, and genuine sentiments of the people themselves, can never be admitted in an extensive country. And when this power is lodged in the hands of a few, not to limit the few is but one step short of giving absolute power to one man. In a numerous representation, the abuse of power is a common injury and has no temptation. Among the few, the abuse of power may often operate to the private emolument of those who abuse it. Signed, the Federal Farmer. Excellent. So that is all to be said in number 56. If you have any questions about what was said in 56, maybe questions about what was said in the preceding papers, or if there's a topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, excuse me, let me untie my tongue, go ahead and post those down in the comments, because the entire purpose of the Calhoun School of Law is to provide you with the necessary skills and information to combat any sort of lawfare waged against you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and post them down in the comments. Excellent. So my name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I'm not sure what the topic for the next lecture is going to be, but I'll do my best to make it as informative and entertaining as this one, if not more so. Regardless of the topic of the next lecture, until I see y'all then, I bid you all farewell.